Hi, this is Mr. Guy, and we're going over the Articles of Confederation today. Basically, the Articles of Confederation was our first constitution, our first plan of government. We had the Revolutionary War, and during the Revolutionary War, the Articles of Confederation were in place and went all the way up to the Constitution. The Articles of Confederation was basically a league of friendship. All 13 states were tied together under this umbrella of the United States, but it was a friendship. Each state was like an independent country. They had their own rules, their own laws, their own money, their own trade rules, and things like that. So it was more looking like Europe than it was like the United States. The states had more power than the federal government. So the organization of the Articles of Confederation was there was no executive branch, there was no president, there was no judicial branch, there was no Supreme Court. There was a Congress, there was a legislative branch with one house, it was unicameral. There were 13 states, so there was 13 votes. To pass a law, you needed 9 out of 13 to pass a law. To change the Articles of Confederation, you needed 13 out of 13, so all states had to agree. The Articles of Confederation basically signed the peace treaty with England. It was our government for those years during the Revolution, after the Revolution, up until 1787. It had some weaknesses, though. With those problems, it couldn't tax, it couldn't raise an army, it couldn't resolve disputes, couldn't regulate trade. States had more power than the national government. So there were a lot of problems. Shays' Rebellion highlighted that. Shays' Rebellion wasn't able to be put down at the beginning. Massachusetts didn't have a militia. The U.S. didn't have a militia to put it down. And finally, a private militia had to be raised to put down Shays' Rebellion. That scared the Founding Fathers and many people, and they called the Constitutional Convention. The Articles of Confederation was an important document. It was our first document. It had weaknesses that was actually improved by the Constitution: the power to tax, the power to regulate trade, the supremacy clause. The federal government had more power than the states. So it's always good to reflect and look at the Articles of Confederation. It was our first plan. It was one where, it was so weak that John Hancock was the first president of the United States, but he didn't take it because it was basically a committee. It was basically a non-functioning position. There was something that they kind of put out there for him, but it was really the legislature was in charge. So when anybody says states' rights, or they look at, we want to go back to states' rights, we look at the Articles of Confederation. I look at the Confederate States of America and how we would be with 50 different states. Do we want a country that is really not a country anymore, but 50 different countries? Do we want a league of friendship? One of the things I read yesterday was Russia is hoping that California secedes or Texas secedes. So in that case, the United States would be weaker. Having 50 separate countries not united makes the United States weaker. We would not be a world power. We would be definitely, maybe you might say you'd have more freedom, you'd have more, states would be different, but we wouldn't be the United States of America. We wouldn't have the standing army. We wouldn't have the great economy that we have. We wouldn't have all the greatness that we have now. So it was our first constitution. It was our first plan of government. It worked for a while until all the problems came to a head. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask in class. And this is the Articles of Confederation.